Okay, everybody, thanks for coming. We were asked to do a panel here on investments kind of with an east-west perspective, so we'll do our best here, okay? So I'm Tony. I'm from Vectr Ventures. We're a private investment company here in Hong Kong with global mandate with technology focus, games technology being one of those. Now let's get some introductions going from our panelists.
Start. Hi guys, my name is Kei. I'm from Kowloon Nights. We often get mistaken for a nightclub or a bar because the name is a little bit exotic. But we're actually a project financing fund that invests in PC, premium, and console titles. And so this is a very interesting thesis because it represents something quite different or a contrast to many of my fellow panelists over here and to many of the investors out there. But we have invested in 19 games thus far. It's a global fund. We've probably overcommitted over 25 million in capital to PC, premium, and console titles. We're probably most famous for, or most well known for, funding Fumeto Ueda-san's next title. He's the creator of The Shadow of the Colossus, The Last Guardian. Those are arguably some of the best games ever created, and we're very happy to be working with him. At the same time, we also work with smaller developers. So our smallest team is actually a two-man team based in Gothenburg, Sweden. And so no matter, whether or not you're an established dev coming from a AAA background or a small student team working on your first game, we seek to support across the board.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Mable Jiang from Nirvana Capital. So we are a very global fund, crypto fund though. We focus a lot investing in both layer 1 and layer 2, starting off in 2016 in San Francisco and in Beijing we operate. But since last year, we started to, focus more on mass adoption. Over the whole year, we've been, working with a lot of the, decentralized applications developers, as well as some of the, ecosystem players like the exchanges, wallets, as well as the games. We have some interesting observation in terms of, the integration of blockchain and what blockchain could do and could not do in terms of the gaming, the NFTs, and other interesting asset perspective. So we were very happy to be here, discuss with the traditional gaming investors to really learn about how people invest here, because really the gaming in terms of the investment is really something that have a lot of interesting point, but also you need to have your own thesis to be outstanding and to be successful, right?
My name is Kelvin from Plutus Ventures. So Plutus is a $200 million US fund investing in a broad range of things from TMT to fintech and also blockchain. I think we are more famous for our investment in the poker gaming industry. We are investors in Poker King, which is one of the largest poker company in Macau.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Ilia. I'm founder of Plasma Alliance company. We developed a new generation blockchain called Plasma, especially for financial services and game developers. Now we targeting the self-game developers and the games from other blockchain. And we have a pool of investors around our blockchain to support them, to support the infrastructure, the development, and marketing. So if you have your DApp or you're going to create someone for your game, please have a look at the Plasma DLC blockchain and look what you get from it. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, a lot of times, startups are looking for funding and they generally don't know who to go to or why to go to. Maybe you guys could talk us about, your specific mandates of what you look into, what you don't look into, so then they know maybe you're a fit, you're not a fit.
Right. So again, like we're a project financing PC premium and console fund. So it's a very specific mandate. So we cannot invest in free to play. We cannot invest in mobile first. We don't invest in blockchain. We don't invest in AR VR. So it represents quite a different thesis from a lot of different people out there. So I would say that if you guys are working on a premium and console title, if you guys are familiar with sort of indie titles, familiar with titles on Steam or consoles, we'll generally be happy to take a look at that. So that's our very specific mandate that we have.
I think for ourselves, like we do focus a lot in gaming. However, I think for the games that are fun to play rather than just to raise funds, I think that's like a key, because like a lot of the time back in the days, like when there's like ICO heat, like people always want to issue some sort of token, but really for a game you really don't need that much of an on-chain. So I think for the ones that are interesting and having some traditional components, for example, like one of our portfolio called Gods Unchained. Actually, the mother company is called Few Games. That's like a trading card game for on blockchain. And a lot of the things there's actually operating off chain, because like you can't really have the gameplay with blockchain in such a slow rhythm. So with that being said, we are also interested in a lot of scalability solution that really supports the blockchain operation in terms of the gaming, as well as we are interested in some of the media that are spitting out really truly interesting insights about how blockchain, the NFTs, and crypto assets in general are really combining together. And furthermore, it's like about how in the future we believe that there are the need for the universal virtual ID for people, to be around. Rather, it's like, you are playing around with the decentralized applications, or you're in, operating in the game, where it's almost like, the Ready Player One in the future, that you probably only need one thing to operate in both the virtual world and the physical world. So like we are interested in those kind of concept as well.
Okay. Because my fund actually looks at a broad space, so I'll just concentrate on games. So what do we look in games? We are looking for the next generation. We think that mobile games have come a long way. The App Store, Google Store, and so on. It's time that something would disrupt this whole entire market. And everybody in games today knows that making money in games is very hard, right? Just like what Korea just presented, every day there's 700 games launched and only 12 made it to the top 100 and so on. So we are looking for the next disruption in the games industry. Can it be blockchain games? Maybe, but we think that blockchain games is still 5 years away.
Okay, I was on both sides. I was an entrepreneur and startupper, and I was on the side of investors and the funds to evaluate the different products. And now I can just suggest and what kind of items or things you can focus on, like startups. First of all, the funds looking at how good you understand the market, where you're going, and your user base and user experience and how you meet their needs. And then you never should go to the hype of the technology market, like, for example, blockchain. If your game can be well done on a classical fiat market, so maybe it's not necessary for you to go to the blockchain just because of the hype. But if you get a real positive effect of using the blockchain technology for your user experience, for your games, for your token economy, so it's meant you have to try to build something on blockchain, but you should be very good informed and understand how this market works and what the problem you will meet on this way. And at the third thing, you should very well understand your investor, because it's very important what the portfolio your investor have on their side and how you can fit to this portfolio And can you speak on one language with this fund or with this angel investor?
Let me just add one more thing. But the whole blockchain games is slow today, but things may just change next year because of Facebook Libra.
Or Plasma.
Okay. Or Plasma.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Say, we're gonna put Sean on the hot seat here and let him do an introduction.
Hey guys, sorry for being late. I had 3:20 on my calendar. I don't know why. I'm Sean Lee from Wargaming. I'm the Chief Corporate Development Officer. I manage all of our strategic initiatives, investments, acquisitions, etc., and coming to Hong Kong. That's what I'm responsible for.
Okay, maybe you want to give us a little insight on maybe kind of your fund mandate or what type of investment structure you guys have.
Well, Wargaming is a developer primarily. We're a developer publisher, so our core focuses are on products. So unlike many VCs whose primary focus is financial returns, our focus is primarily on strategic synergies. So we invest behind studios, technologies, publishing partnerships, etc., that primarily aim to support our existing core business of making and publishing games.
Okay, great. So, I mean, as a lot of you guys are you're looking for funds, and, you know, some of these guys, like Calvin's he's got a large fund, right? So maybe you guys can talk to us a little bit what stage you look at, and then what your general ticket sizes are.
Right. We write check sizes anywhere from $100K all the way up to $6 million. So that's quite a large range. You can think that's pretty small because we are on the project side, so we don't have Series A, Series C, we don't do equity. So it represents, for us, is more of the scope of the project, right, and the stage of the project. So when we always get pitches coming in, typically they can come in from a paper pitch anywhere to something like a more fleshed out demo. So it really depends on the stage of the development that the game is in, right? We have done games where they're, I would say, maybe 70%, 80% done. They're close to launch. Some are close to early access. And we have signed games at paper pitch. So our range is quite, in terms of the cycle, but also in terms of the check size, quite a wide variety of titles, right? So for us, it's really the most important part when we're looking at these type of titles is that, will they generate a decent return? Yes. But also, is the game doing something new in the genre? Are they doing something specific? Do they have a distinctive art style? Are they really going to bring something new to that specific genre?
Right, for us, we mostly do some of the seed. That's probably 70% of our investment, but we also do some of the Series A if it's strategic. So for us, I think, in terms of investing in games, mostly it's equity, but we do care about, what's the strategic value that the game would bring to some of our other portfolios, for example, some of the layer 2 solutions or the layer 1 public chains. But in terms of, in general, other gaming related investment but non-gaming, we would care about whether, that would become a liquid turnover. For example, some of the ones that are, with tokens, that's something, better for equity because, for equity, it's harder for you to exit at some point. But, for the token, there's always interesting dynamics between the private investors as well as the team, and it's always, flexible as well. So, I think that's really, the strategic value was probably the core thing that we consider for all the investment because we do want to have some of the gaming companies that we invested or the studio that we invested in would be able to add value in the future for the infrastructure layer, right?
So for my fund, we do anything from 500,000 US to 3 million US. This would be our size, but we have done 15 million US early this year.
Okay, from my side, it's more like blockchain plus fund. So we are most looking for the companies on the very early stage that can provide us with MVP or proof of concept. And we actually can fund them around 50 to 100K for first stage to go to market. So we help them go into market. We help them acquire the payments globally and publish their apps or their games on mobile or desktop applications. That's what we focus on.
Once again, we're strategic, so we'll do whatever in any format, any structure. Something as small as 100K to double-digit millions are the deal sizes we've done in the past. But as I said, key thing is there a core fit with our core business of making and selling games? And if there's a fit, we'll find a way to do it.
Great. So can we keep hearing a theme here? Company. Like, what do you guys look for in a company? Like some specifics that these people can maybe resonate on.
Because we look at premium PC and console games, it's really very highly personal. A lot of these games are pet projects or life work. They're very personal. It's really, I would even say, as a matter of taste. It's like your taste in particular types of games. So for us, we look at really two core things. One is the creative vision or creative direction, and also the will to and ability to execute. So creative vision, it can come in a variety of forms, right? It can come in, certain creators have a particular view on a genre. They could have a particular view of something as simple as a game mechanic, or it can be going to, say, a particular art style, say in pixel art, for example. So it really depends on, say, that specific creator's sort of personal vision for that title. And then when it comes to ability and will to execute, I think that's pretty much more straightforward. Whether or not they have the right team behind them, whether or not they have the right composition of, say, either being remote, whether they're remote working or whether they're working in a studio, they have the right composition of team members to get that over the finish line. So for us, it's really these two core aspects.
Right, I think like seed investment, as everyone knows, that a lot of the ideas doesn't really form as it is, when you are started versus 2 years later. So I think, having a truly, first of all, entrepreneurial and also having very good track record founders, that's definitely the key for us. But at the same time, if someone does have a very good leader kind of vision as well as capability, but they don't have the past experience, but they have the resource to bring other resources on board, that works too. And for us, I think another thing, it's about being upfront and transparent, because in the industry, because I don't believe in certain things like blockchain games, or I would only see this as an investment, because blockchain games really not... Because it's almost like when you're using Amazon Cloud, you wouldn't say you're using Amazon Cloud to power your company. So for this, I would just say gaming. I think in general, it's when you find something doesn't work, but you already raised your fund, and then you can be upfront with your investors as well as your retail customers that you cannot make the deadline because X, Y, and Z, and then you can have a modified plan for that rather than because we always understand that for the early angel round or the seed round, there's a lot of changes, and we are fine with that. It's really about how you really fix it, and we do care about the I would say integrity in that way and transparency with the project.
I think to get money from VCs is a full-time job and very, very hard. We look at, first thing, actually VCs look at 360 degree of the whole entire investment, and then we will look again 360 degree to make sure that we make no mistake, because if we make mistake, we don't have the second fund. Okay? So we have to make money for our LPs. So instead of just, we look at everything from the business concept, the product, the founding team, and his team, and you have to visit their office. You got to see who are the founders' background, what have they done before, where were they from, do they have the know-how, and all this. And if you look into blockchain, why do they need tokens? Is the tokens really needed in that ecosystem or the product that they are building? Or simply that we see that in 99% of all blockchain companies, the tokens is simply to raise money, right? So this is a fact. And well, it's not wrong that the token is there, but if you want to raise money today using tokens, you have to change your whole entire tokenization formula. And this formula have to be to entice the VCs, you have to give equity, and you tell them that here's another bunch of tokens that in the event that anything happens, you get back half your money at minimum, right?
Okay, for early stage companies, all about the founders. So you're like an investor, you look at the background of this founder, of its traction, and the founder should show how they can solve the problems or challenges they met on the product or maybe previous product they built. And as you see, for blockchain space, a lot of people and founders, they're very new for this technology, and technology is very new. So we not see a lot of traction on this side, and everybody just do some tries to build something and show this product to the mass market and see how they get the market share with their product. So it's a lot of experiments now on this market. And from like the investor side, mostly look how fast can the company move from one strategy to another, trying to find their market or product fit. And this should happen just very fast, like 2-3 weeks, like in all accelerators. Try to bootstrap their product using this technology and try to find the right model and right users, understanding their needs and their to make better the UX and cost of getting these users. So we're looking most on the, as I said, on the traction, on their background, and their soft skills like a leader of the startup.
I don't like boring panels, so I'm going to say some stupid shit.
Even better.
I get really pissed off when VCs go around and they're like, oh, we look at this, we look at that. We have a half-joking, funny philosophy of wargaming. Because we do free-to-play games, our philosophy is, by definition, all free-to-play games will fail. And if you look at stats, that's basically true. Almost all free-to-play games that come out, that studios attempt, all of them fail. Only a select few are breakout hits. So how we translate this back into how we evaluate opportunities is, I think the best we can do is do our best to not waste money down fairly obvious potential failures. And even this loose angle is pretty hard because it's so easy to overlook a studio that looks so obviously stupid. They could be the next Fortnite. You just don't know. So coming back, like we make no. We are under no illusion that we can use like the collective brain power of a bunch of smart people with a lot of experience to try to handpick some future success. I just don't think it's possible. It's just we do our best not to waste money down the drain and then just pray to God that one of them is going to be successful. So I know it's not an ideal answer to your question, but that's actually genuinely how we approach things.
No, I like it.
Get money from Wargaming.
Right? Right. So we've heard founder a couple times in the conversation. Now, what traits does a founder have that make you feel that there's going to be more chance of success?
I mean, this is an obviously very hard one, but for us, I mean, we look a lot at transparency as well. I mean, at Kowloon, we give our developers or our creators a large amount of autonomy. We let them make all the creative decisions. We let them make all the business decisions, and we basically don't even have in our contract those contractual rights. So we don't even have the legal high ground. So we give them a lot of this autonomy, and we expect that same level of sort of mutual understanding, mutual transparency, and just let us know when things go south, right? I think that for us is very important. When you're working on a game, many things can go south. You know, you can suddenly get a fight into your sound guy. You know, oh, I don't like this specific sound effect. You know, you can get a fight with your programmer. There are a lot of fights that happen, right? And I think for us, we try to become more of a mediator. You know, it's like, okay, if something goes south, how can we best rectify that? Can we get you a new sound guy? Can we get you a new programmer? Can we make sure that you're not stuck in this creative rut? Can we take you out for a good time? Those kind of things. Why it might sound silly, but that's actually very important in terms of game development. So we try to make it as easy as possible for these creators to sort of do their own thing.
Right, I think in terms of like early project, like you always care about not just like the CEO or something. It's actually more like a check and balance across the whole team. So, for example, like if you have someone who's, and we do think like, you know, being well informed in an industry is very important. It's like if you have someone who is, we're very well informed, always know everything about, you know, things happening in this industry. And at the same time, you would need someone who could be very down to earth and do stuff and to make sure everything get delivered. But another thing is that, you know, for these kind of teams, like, you know, whether those, they had like prior operational, you know, experience to make sure certain things happen, like they know how to fix it. And if they don't, like they know where to go to, what's the go-to resource to really get those fixed. Like that's also important. Another thing about, you know, I guess there's like no quote unquote formula for investing like early stage companies in general, but we would believe that, you know, the ones that knows how to communicate, like whether that being like what I mentioned about being transparent, as well as, you know, communicate with their customers, as well as like their community managers, like that's very important. I know this sounds cliche, but it's really hard to even for any projects nowadays to deliver their monthly updates or whatsoever to their investors. So like that's the kind of, you know, quality that we would, you know, really care about, and also we believe that that would deliver the true success in the future.
So we look at it this way. There's two types of founders that we invest in. The first type is the easy type, those that we have invested before and we have made money with them before. So that's the easy thing. So we know them well, they start a new venture and we put money in. So the second type of founders, if they pass all the things, is that we actually, if it's very early stage, we will continue to meet the founder. And sometimes it takes like 6 months. How long have we known each other?
For years.
A year?
Yeah.
Yeah, a year. And maybe I'll invest in him this month.
A year from now.
Yeah, I met him in the US and so on. So we've been talking. And this is one way that we evaluate. We want to see survival instinct in the founder. Many of the founders that after you met them, 3 months later, you bump into them in another conference. Hey, you have a new company on your tag. What happened to the last one? Oh, I didn't get funded, so I changed a new company. Right? You don't want that kind of founders, right? But some of my VC friends prefer such founders. They kill the product fast and they move on. So there's no yes, no. Each VCs have a different kind of mentality of what they want to look for.
Okay, for us as early, yeah, more. So for us, I think it's very important from founders to have an energy. Energy is very important when you build a product, when you try to achieve huge results and like solve some challenges. And you should see this energy in the eyes of this founder, and then you understand that you can give them a small amount of money and he just try to spend it very smart, but mostly build the project on top of their energy and can lead their team behind them to the targets for their company. So I think the energy on early stage is very important, because you do so many cold calls and cold meetings with the people, you just shouldn't stop. And when you see like investor that this guy never stop, so you think that he can build a product and he can take the market share with this product. So,
yeah, actually just building on what you said, it goes back to our core philosophy. Free-to-play games, by definition, all fail. What that means is the team or the founder, they got to have this attitude of energy, but also the ability to not quit. It's kind of what you said. Like, it ain't going to work. And these people are jumping into an activity that by our definition is not going to work, which means you got to be kind of half crazy and keep driving at it until you find that success. And if you look at many of the most successful free-to-play titles out there, whether it's PC or console or mobile, these are guys who've been at it for years, game after game have failed after failed. We've heard these stories of the 47th game that was Angry Birds, and Clash of Clans was whatever game after failures. Wargaming had a series of failures or barely sustaining gains until we hit some success with World Tanks. And coming back, it's that energy, it's that ability to power through when you know odds are stacked against you. I got a question for our panel, though. Like, it's easy to talk about, oh, this is what's important in a founder, but how do you evaluate that? How do you actually, I mean, yeah, you said, like, look at him in the eye, right? You must have an amazing ability. I want to see you on a date. But, like, how do you actually evaluate this?
Well, I think, like, sometimes you just can't. Like, I think there are, like, two types of, or a few more, but I think there are, like, two typical types. Like, one is that you try to put some checks in each of the projects and make sure, like, one of them outruns. And the other one is that, like, you know, sorry, what's your name? Yeah, what Calvin said is that you really spend some time, try to get to know with them, and after, say, a year or something, you put a big check size in it. Like, otherwise, it's there's no way that you would know someone, like, you know, even after a few calls or something. And even, like, sometimes, like, you might be interested in incubating something, so you would want to send one of your fund manager to the portfolio company, and then what he sees is really different from, like, what you see from the numbers and stuff. So I don't think there's any way to really get to know someone, like, instantly, not to mention a company.
So don't get upset and don't get too happy when a VCs never say no to you, because VCs never say no. They will always, let's keep in touch.
And we will call you. Just 5-second impressions, like when we meet each other, we just understand who is these people in front of us. This is just like happened between investor and the startups. 5 seconds, and you almost ask the question, will you invest in these people or not? So work on this first impression for any people, not only for investor, and you will be successful.
I think for us it's really easy because we come from content investment, so we make investments into content. So like I said, it's a matter of taste. So when I built rapport with sort of my developers, you know, do they play the same games as me? You know, do we have the same taste in games? And it might be a little bit superficial, but, you know, I don't want it to be a drag every time I have to meet my developers. You know, I want to talk about the things that I like, and I hope that they like the same things. So for us, it's a little bit easier. You know, we don't have the drag of doing, you know, equity. We have to figure out, if this thesis works. We just have to figure out if we like the game. So I think for us, it's a little bit easier.
So one thing I want to iterate here is that, remember, it's a two-way street. As a startup, you need to evaluate the investor also. So I'd like to just spin off Sean's thing is, you know, how do these founders tell, you know, who's the good investor, who has the integrity, and who's going to follow through?
You don't need to tell. Who writes you the check, that's the boss. Especially for early startups, you know. Unless you are in B round, you already have power and so on, and you can decide whose money you want to take. But if you are a startup, you're raising your seed round, your angel round, whoever writes you the check, kiss him or her.
I'll take a quick stab at that question. It's a great question, by the way. Especially if you're in a position where sometimes you may not even be in a position where you can pick and choose, but let's say you are. Then you need to do as much homework on the potential investors the same way we do a lot of homework checking on you. And, you know, one surefire thing is reference checks. Just go ask around. Ask around about the particular guys you're interested in taking money from. And if you do your homework, it's not that difficult. If you do that homework, you're going to start getting a shape and color and picture of who these people are. And oftentimes, it's going to be worse than you thought it was. So what I mean by that is frankly speaking, a little bit more towards the strategic investors. Because strategic investors have a particular motivation in wanting to invest in your studio. So do your homework carefully. The VCs, end of the day, I mean, I don't want to denigrate VCs, but VCs, end of the day, are writing you a check and they want a financial return from you. It's a fairly simple, straightforward relationship, whereas strategics, especially if they're offering you a lot, they'll promise you, all these users and all this marketing effort will help you design your game, will help you with their art, will help you with their free-to-play monetization design. Just confessing, I'm an ex-10 guy just across the street from here, and oftentimes it doesn't materialize. Even with Wargaming, we've had conversations where we tell studios, this is what we're going to do for you, and oftentimes it doesn't materialize the way even we would like it to. So just ask around.
I think
Wargaming have the power because you guys knows the market and you guys have the users and you know what advertisements to place that works and what doesn't. So you can actually evaluate the studios whether they know the shit, whether how to market a game or not, right?
I think we sit in a unique position because we're not quite a publisher, but we're not quite, a VC either. So we sit in quite a unique position. So when I say that a lot of developers come to us and they ask, which offer do I take if they had the choice, I would say to them, look at your publisher or look at your investor slate or capacity. Because we are a small team, and if we invest in 19 projects, that means one of us has to be a point man for each particular project. So under me, maybe I had a couple developers that I'm working with, and under certain publishers, they have a slate for that year. They're going to release X amount of games that particular year. So find out where you stand or where your game stands in that slate. Are you going to be a priority title for that publisher? Are you going to be a priority title for that investor? So really figure out where you stand in that particular slate is my advice to a lot of developers out there.
Right. To follow up on the topic about, let's say you have the position to, pick and choose, I think, on top of, choosing from the investors that could bring you really the strategic values or, say, when you're at seed, but then, you envision yourself raising your B, in 3 years or so, who could help? Those are probably the cliche. But I think another very crucial thing that a lot of people probably kind of ignore is that, things always operate in cycles. So, one of the key due diligence for the projects is that check out how those investors behave in the down cycle, whether they would really truly believe in you guys, continue to put the money in, or whether they're going to squeeze you, try to get back, now when it's up cycle, it's equity, and then when it's down cycle, it's debt. Those are probably not the kind of investor that you want. This often be ignored, in up cycle, but I think that's observing, from even just the crypto bear market, from last year to now, I think it's very interesting to see, how this dynamics keep changing and people start to evaluate those. And I think those are actually very, very important.
Actually, there's one more question is do you take one check or 10 checks from 10 investors, right? So those are what the game studios, the founders needs to decide, whether it's a single check or you have 10 investors that need to do PR with every month or every quarter.
So we're getting close on running out of time here. So what I'd like is there any advice you guys could give the audience here on specifically relating to investment, finding out who to talk to, how to talk to them, and anything from your experiences. Go anybody.
Okay. My advice is very simple. Funding is there's two ways. Either you are very good and you have a super product and you are a super entrepreneur, you are okay. Or find a professional to help you raise funding. It's all about packaging and marketing to the investors.
Yeah, my advice will be do a very good homework about where you're gonna look in these funds, who can be a potential investor, what this investor has in its portfolio, and the target not the whole market, target just 10, 20 potential investors in your region, in your market, and just work close with them. Meet them on conference, make some conference call with their team, just do a lot of conversation with each of the investors and show that your product is good, that you good understanding the market, that the marketing package of your product is good. And then mostly from these 20 investors, with one of them, you can succeed.
Just go to YouTube and watch my talk, How to get investors to eat out of your hand. I'm just kidding. That one was a horrible talk. Please don't go watch it. Actually, a little bit like what these guys had said, but it goes back to what I said about doing your homework. I hate people who come to me and say like, "Oh, don't you guys? Who are you? Aren't you guys who did that like ping pony game?" And they say like, "I don't know, we're doing this soccer football game, and I think it's going to be a good fit for you guys." And I was like, "Why the hell do you say that?" Too many people spray and pray. That never works. Pick laser sharp guide your pitches to specific investors that you've done homework on, that you know you have good amount of confidence, that is validated by people who know them, tell you that I think there's a good fit, and then start from there. That way you don't waste your time spraying and praying, and that's how you get the immediate attention of the potential investors. If you, for example, do your homework and say, and find out that Kowloon Knights likes these kinds of things, then you go for them and spend your quality time with them, not spraying and praying to like every VC investor around the block. That's my quick advice.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I would even take that one step further, right? If you can figure out who on the team has signed which projects, or who on the team has an affiliation or has a preference for a certain genre or a certain project, I mean, go target that contact person, right? Like at Kowloon, some of us play certain types of games, some of us don't, right? So really getting down and figuring out, which games in our portfolio, my game sort of fits in there, or, my game is this particular genre, therefore it'll be a fit with this publisher. Really go laser hone in there and figure out who signed which titles, and if you can target that particular person, that's your best fit, right?
To wrap up, I would say find your quality versus value match perfectly. I think that's actually, there's one kind of misunderstanding, at least from my perspective, is that a lot of the project things, their valuation even at the seed round is very important. But my experience is that actually it really doesn't matter that much. You always wanted to start, and then you want to make sure that the valuation you set delivers, or even a little bit, undervalue, so that there are interesting people who are really truly understand your value would invest in. Because for us, at least, the thesis is that if there's something AAA quality, but it's highly chased on the market, we might not invest and instead go for a AA, but then slightly undervalued. Because at the end, well, that's really, it depends on how your investment thesis is. But at least for us, we believe that finding something that has alpha potential, large alpha in it, it's actually more crucial for seed investors. So I think for the projects, don't care too much about the valuation. I think that's the advice.
Okay, excellent. I want to thank everybody for sharing today, and everyone else, enjoy the rest of the show. Thanks for coming.